How's it going there, YouTube? Coming at you with a very special video today. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing and going over how you should map out and plan your system. Very important, so that way you don't waste your time, and most importantly, you don't waste your money. Because I can't tell you how many times, I took the wrong steps and, upgraded something and realized I had to take that out and go back and, spend more money doing something else. So I'm going to let my hindsight be your foresight and give you some perspective on what you should do in planning out your system based off your end result and goals of what you want to accomplish. Everything from electrical upgrades to upgrading your head unit to sound deadening to, finally putting in your substage and the proper steps you should be thinking about when upgrading. So that way you don't have to backtrack, you don't have to waste time and waste your money. So with that, stay tuned so you can find out how to take your ride to the next level. Let's get loud. All right, YouTube, so I got my awesome son here with me to help me out with this video. Want to say hi?
Hi, how's it going?
He's got a pug on his head. We're a pug family. But anyway, so if you're here, then you want to map out your system in the most efficient way possible. My son knows, he's seen me in my car rebuilding things many times.
Yeah, all the time.
But I've learned my lesson over the years. I've been doing this for well over 20 years now. And I tell you what, it's constant learning experience, right? You never stop growing. So, mistakes are lessons as you do your car audio builds. But hopefully this video will help you save a lot of those mistakes and save you a lot of headaches, right?
That's true.
So the biggest thing to discuss and to think about first is, what is the end result, right? Doesn't matter if you're talking about stereos or life. I mean, the important thing is figuring out, what do you want the end result of your system to look like, right? Do you want an SQ build for sound quality? Do you want a competition vehicle for SPL? Do you want just a daily listener that you're just going to put in your commuter, right? You just got to determine, well, what is the end result that you're looking for? Now, I understand, and trust me, I know, how many times have I rebuilt the Hummer stereo?
Oh, like you upgraded so much, but you've been getting better and better.
Exactly.
Like, you haven't made a lot of mistakes because, you want to know why? He has learned from his mistakes.
That's true.
He's only made 2 mistakes in his life, and he's never done it any time ever again.
Thank you, buddy. But yes, finding that end result, right, of what you currently want as an end result, because I understand that, maybe your dream for right now is to have 2 12s in your trunk and, maybe 1,000 watts. I understand that probably will be upgraded later, right? Maybe to a wall, right? Or 4 12s or, 12 18s, who knows, right? Because that's the pitfall of car audio, is that, you just never want to stop, right? It's like the more you get, the more you want to get.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just scale it down to the first vision, okay? What is your first vision? Do you want a daily driver that you can just something you can listen to, that sounds good, SQ build, or do you want to, float towels and have an SPL build? So getting that end result, you can then take the steps back of what do you need to do to get there, right? The most efficiently. Because most people, they don't have an end result. They just go out, they go to a store or go online and they buy a bunch of subs and amps, throw it in there, and then they got a lot of work ahead of them. Yeah, that's a waste of money.
No, they need to, people out there are thinking okay, if I buy this, what can I do? No, they need to plan first.
Exactly.
So they don't make the mistake. Then they're like, what do I need to get this? Instead of I got this to make what?
Exactly. So if you fail to plan, then you might as well plan to fail. So with that said, the number one thing you got to consider, whether you're doing a SQ build or whether you're doing an SPL build, specifically SPL build, is the electrical system. I know it's not something that is exciting or that, is really going to give you in the beginning, what you're probably looking for, but it's important, right, to have that foundation based off what your future plans are. So your electrical is definitely one thing that you don't want to skimp on. Again, depending on your end result is going to determine what you need to do. So if you're just going to be running under 1,000 watts, then you probably don't need a whole battery bank in the back, right? You don't need a super high output alternator. Just doing the big 3 upgrade would suffice, right? And that's such a simple thing to do. that you can do on the front end before even putting everything in, so that way you can have your electrical system up to par. If you're going to be running a little bit more than that, maybe 1,000 to 2,500 watts, it wouldn't be bad idea to upgrade your under hood battery, so that way you can have more juice available, more reserve. And then if you're going to be running a higher power system, if you're planning to be maybe 3,000 and above, wouldn't be a bad idea to think about potentially upgrading your alternator so you can have more amperage available on tap. And if you're going to be running more than that, then consider getting additional battery banks, right? I always recommend working on your electrical system first, because that is the foundation of how all your music comes to life, right? That's the powerhouse. That's the blood, the heart of your system is the electrical supply. So you don't want to skimp on that. You want to make sure that you get that taken care of. And again, if you're just planning out a daily listener and you're keeping it under 1,000 watts, then you probably don't even have to do anything, in all honesty, right? But I would at least do the big three. So yeah, electrical system, definitely take care of that. All right, so the second thing that you should be considering when building your system is, what do you think it is?
I think it's a head unit. You gotta work on that.
He's definitely a car audio boy, that's for sure. But yes, you got to think about your head unit, and two things. Are you going to be replacing it with an aftermarket one, or are you going to be factory integrating? A lot of new cars these days, I mean, the entire brain of the system is ran through the head unit, right? I mean, it's not even really like a head unit anymore. It's a multimedia center, so to speak. So replacing it oftentimes is not going to be feasible for a lot of people unless you're doing a competition build or something like that. But most people are going to be doing factory integration. So that's the second thing that you got to think about. All right. Now, if you're replacing your head unit completely with an aftermarket one, then you have a lot of options, right? There's single DIN, there's double DIN, there's all kinds of features you can get in there. And depending on what your end result and goal is, that's going to determine what you get. If you're going factory integration, then there's a lot of things that you got to consider as far as, converters, modules and things that you need in order to connect an amplifier and aftermarket equipment to your factory head unit. That again is another conversation, because if we just stayed on that subject alone, we would be here literally for hours. Okay, so we can definitely talk about that. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment below. But that's just something you got to think about, is what are you going to be doing with the brain of your car audio build. All right, so after you've determined what you want your head unit to be, whether it's aftermarket or factory integration, there's the next step that you should be considering. And what would that be?
Oh, that's gotta be the front stage. You gotta work on that.
Absolutely. Smart guy there. Most people don't get that. I don't care how good your front stage is. Again, if you want sound quality and you want something that is going to be able to handle a lot of power, don't neglect it, especially if you're going to be adding subs and amplifiers. You want to make sure that you have a well-rounded system, right? And so many people, I can't tell you, the first thing they do is they buy an amplifier and they buy a subwoofer, right? And they just add all of this bass to a factory front stage or a factory electrical system, and now their lights are dimming, their car is dying, right? Their mids and highs sound all muddied and not clear because the bass is just washing it out. So I know, and I don't do that
at all.
So
that's the worst thing that you can do with bass. That's one of the worst things you can do.
Yes. Because yes, we all like to feel our music. We love bass, we love amps, we love subs, but let's do it right, okay? Let's make it actually sound good instead of just having a car that goes boom, right? Let's have a car that has a full out system that sounds proper and that's supported with electrical. So front stage, you absolutely got that.
Yes.
Okay, that entails your door speakers, your tweeters, if they're in the A pillar or in the dash, and making sure that it's properly amplified, okay? Components are a very easy way to go. If you want something that's simple, kind of turnkey, right? Component packages usually come with a woofer for your door, and then also a tweeter to mount wherever you want, or in your pillar or something like that, and then a crossover that actually has the filter set perfectly for the speakers. And all you got to do is just connect that to your amplifier for your front channels. So when you work on your front stage, you can also start thinking about your rear stage, which is your back doors and your back panel, right? Usually maybe some 6x8, 6x9, something like that. or whatever the case may be. So making sure that you take care of the cabin, I think most people would be surprised of how good you can make your car audio sound even without adding subs yet, right? Subs are coming, but making sure that you work pretty much from the front of the car to the back is what you're looking to do, right? You start with the electrical system, then you step back to the head unit, the source unit, then you work on the front stage with some components, right? Or some individuals, speakers and tweeters, and then you go back to the rear stage, right? To add that rear fill. And then finally, once that's all done, there's really only one more thing left to do, and that's the fun thing. What is that?
Ooh, you gotta add those subwoofers.
Gotta add them subwoofers, he's right. Now, just one or maybe a dozen, what do you think?
I think if I had the choice, I'd get like 100.
True bass head right there. 100 subwoofers, let's do it.
Yeah, like let's say I buy a semi truck and literally every wall has like 100 subwoofers, and like each column and row is like surrounding you, and there's this big chair in the middle, and you just have to listen and just like at every direction.
Wow, that is a true bass head. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, your sub stage, right? That is going to fill in the bottom end of everything that you've done so far, right? And it's going to be that much more worth it. Because I tell you what, if you just go out there and buy a sub and amp first, yeah, you're going to have bass, it may sound good, but it's not going to be a dynamic sound stage like it is if you focus on everything else first, right? Get your head unit, like we talked about. After your electrical, get your head unit, get that dialed in with the proper crossovers. A lot of them have graphic equalizers and things like that. If not, then you may have to get an external equalizer, right? And just get things dialed in. So that way, when you do start amplifying and getting your speakers upgraded, right, you have actual tools to be able to get everything dialed in. There are a lot of head units these days that have DSPs, which are digital sound processors, which are amazing tools to use when tuning your car audio system. Again, that's another subject that can be an hour long, right? Or you can also get external ones if your head unit doesn't have one built in. And then that'll get you all set up so that when you tune your speakers, that your front speakers, your rear speakers, everything's in sync and it sounds good. Then you add your subs and your amplifier so that way you can just fill in that bottom end and just have a clean sounding system. Now I understand for those of you that like SPL builds and aren't really looking for sound quality, then you can probably forego all that, right? How many car shows have we been to, car audio shows, where people have done nothing really but just upgrade their subs and amplifiers?
So many. Like I've been like about a dozen, maybe like 100. Like yeah. I've been everywhere, like almost all around the world, and just no one. Yeah,
I know. So here's the thing to that. Most people that are into competition like that, like scores, SPL, they don't focus on their front or rear stage or anything like that, right? It's just how many subs, amps, and batteries can I fit into here to make the highest numbers. So if that's you, then hey, great. Just focus on number one and the last two things, right? Because if you're going to do an SPL build, you better have a strong electrical system. I'm talking, multiple runs of 0 gauge, battery banks, you name it, right? More than one alternator and whatever the case may be. But just thinking about that, in a bigger scale as far as the steps you should take, that's the biggest thing. So you don't have to backtrack. All right, so just a couple more little pro tips here that we've learned over the years. Like my son has said, a lot of mistakes that I've made. Well, not many, but I've seen a lot of people make mistakes. Just for little things that you really don't think about. I see people, they start out small, and this is most people. I mean, gosh, even my Hummer project, it started out with just 2 15s in a ported box, right? And then I upgraded, I basically doubled the power, changed my subwoofers out to bigger subs, and got a custom enclosure. Then I had to upgrade my batteries and all that, and then I ran with that for a little bit, and then I decided, well gosh, I'm going to rip all that out. Now I'm going to build a wall, but I didn't put enough runs of 0 gauge, so now I need to pull everything out and put more in there. And I just had to keep breaking down, rebuilding, which is a common thing in the car audio world. But if you plan ahead, you can eliminate a lot of those steps.
Yeah, just make sure that you don't upgrade to the worst. You need to when you upgrade, you need to get better and better and better.
Yep, that's why we are next level car audio, taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
But you know, even for people that don't plan on going that big, just set yourself up for success. Like, I can't tell you how many people, okay, I used to install car audio for, and you know, maybe they have like a 500 watt amp or a 1,000 watt amp, you know, nothing big, but you know, you only need to run, you know, a 4 gauge to that. You don't need to run a 0 gauge. But I always tell people, I'm like, hey, you know, what I've seen is people, you know, they get used to this and they want, you know, more. They want to get bigger and get a bigger amp. So what I would recommend is, you know, why don't we go ahead and upgrade to a zero gauge run of power? So that way, you know, you have more than enough power going to your current amp. But if you decide to get, you know, a 1,500 watt or a 2,000 watt amp down the road and upgrade your stereo, the wire is already there, right? We don't have to go in there, pull it out, replace it with 0 gauge, and that's going to save you money and time down the road. Well, guess what? Most people don't take that advice, and they come back later, or I see them later, and they have a bigger system, and you know, that wiring just had to come out and, you know, put bigger wire in. So just little things like that, you know, you just got to keep in mind. Sound deadening, you know, I didn't talk about that, but that's something, you know, whether you have a small system or a big system, it's important. You know, that's a step that it's not fun. And it's, you know, a lot of people say, well, gosh, you know, I'm spending this money. It's not really increasing my sound quality. Well, yes, it is. You know, it eliminates rattle. It keeps things nice and tight. So, you know, that's a step that you got to consider too before even putting in your subs and amp, right? What are some potential things that are going to vibrate? What are some things that, you know, may need some deadening? So, just really laying things out and just planning it, right? That's kind of like the rule of carpentry, where you measure twice and you cut once. So that way you don't make a silly mistake and got to do it all over again. I mean, that includes installing wires. I can't believe how many times I cut a wire and found out it was, you know, a foot short. And now I got a piece that I can't really use for that. And I got to go back and make a piece a little longer. So yeah, always measure. But yeah, you know, there's just a lot of things to think about. And again, this isn't an all video. This is just something that, you know, I wanted to record for the community out there. I know a lot of you veterans, you know, already know this kind of stuff, but this is for somebody that's brand new and doesn't really know where to start, right? Because we all made the mistake of just getting a sub and amp, throwing it in the back of our car as is, and then we wonder why we have electrical problems. We wonder why it doesn't sound as good as it could, because we never put in sound deadening. We never upgrade our electrical system, right? We didn't do anything with the front stage. You know, we got some crappy factory speakers in the front and all this sub stage equipment, and it just sounds whack, right? It sounds out of sync. So, you know, I hope this helped add some value to you all. Again, this is not an all video, but just an overview of, you know, things to think about as you're building your system. So, any final thoughts?
Oh, yes. All I gotta say is just please do not make the mistakes that my dad mentioned. Just please. You'll be sorry later in the future, because if you make those mistakes, you'll probably be like, oh, it's okay. Trust me. I know what I'm doing. But later on, you'll be like, oh no, I just wasted $100 on this box, but no, it just doesn't fit. You just gotta measure. You gotta measure to everything, and just make sure that the wiring fits how big your subwoofers are. You can't make these mistakes.
Right.
You can't do
And
it.
if you do, well, hey, you know, it's a
get
lesson
better.
learned. Yeah, you learn from your mistakes. And a very wise person once told me, a lesson is repeated until it's learned, right? And when the lesson repeats, it always seems to get harder and more expensive. So if you make a mistake, learn from it. Ask questions. That's what's great about the car audio community is, you know, you can always find somebody that's willing to help. And, you know, that's why I put this channel together, you know, not to hide my knowledge, but to share it and offer help to anybody that has those kind of questions. Okay, so comment below, like this video, subscribe if you haven't done so already, so you don't miss how to take your ride to the next level. Let's get loud.
Yes. Bye.